Hi, welcome to Mark Moore Fine Artist Conversations, and this is another installment. And today we're with, tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Megan Smythe, and I'm an artist.
Megan, how did you decide to be an artist?
I would say I didn't exactly decide to be an artist. It was something that I could do. I had been struggling in school as a teenager and really directionless, and I was lucky enough to take a ceramics class. Well, it was an art class actually. It was an art class, and I wasn't really responding to the drawing and the painting, but there's some clay in the room that I picked up and tried, and it just fit for me. My brain started to work in ways that I hadn't had access to in a long time, and I just went for it at that point. Yeah.
What did you think you got out of the process of making art that was enjoyable for you?
There was something about the weight of the material and the speed of the material. I had access to my brain in ways, or my thinking in ways, and it also sort of cuts the busyness of your thinking, so I could concentrate really for long periods of time, which was something I'd lost.
Yeah. How do you work?
Usually I begin with a gesture in mind, or maybe an exchange, or a scene. Always of bodies. The figure is really central to my practice. Lately I've also been starting from drawings, where I'll overlay references to Greek and Roman classical figuration and cartoon imagery. So then I begin with material, and there's always a certain point, I let go of the drawing that I had in mind, because when drawing I really like to exploit the line, and in material I'm more interested in sculpting in the round. Usually I start with clay. Clay's my foundation, it's part of my background. So I'll start with several figures at a time, and then relationships start to form between the different objects and go from there.
From your standpoint, first, does the practice of drawing and working through these ideas first help inform the practice of sculpting? Or is the drawing kind of an afterthought where you're working through concepts that's independent from the sculptures?
Oh, I think they're definitely related. I think drawing for me is something I can work through quickly, whereas like ceramic takes a long time to work through, because there's so many stages to the process. So I can start to mix different styles really simply and quickly, and that's really what I'm interested in doing. Yeah.
What's your background?
My background is in ceramic arts. That's where I got my education in ceramics. So I started at Sheridan College, which was the craft and design school. And then I transferred to Nova Scotia College of Art and Design in Halifax. And then I went on to get my master's at Alfred University in New York State.
So you grew up on the East Coast?
I grew up in Canada.
Yeah.
I grew up in Ontario, in a town called Kingston, Ontario. We had moved around a lot before settling in Kingston. We had moved around to different parts of Canada. We lived in Jamaica for a little while, and landed in Kingston, where we had family.
Do you have a feeling what the role of the artist is in society right now?
I think it's to look at things deeply and to explore and expose. I think, the role is to take risks and to be daring. Yeah.
Well, I think you certainly do that in your work right now.
Thank you.
You're very successful in the new body of work, which was just featured in a local exhibition. And the focus of our recent artsy exhibition was phenomenal.
Oh, thank
Congratulations
you so much.
on that.
Thank you.
How has your practice changed over time?
I think it's lightened up. I think it's become less serious. I'm interested in humor more and more in the work. Ceramics is really difficult and it takes a long time to learn how to utilize the medium. And then there's also the kind of complexity, but it can be sort of like stoic, just ceramic and glaze on its own. But I'm interested in the juxtaposition between that language and the language of like materials that I've been experimenting with and using in my practice lately, like foam and plastic. I've been using a lot of plasticine, which is actually a children's toy. So yeah, these quicker materials.
In glass, do you do the glass yourself?
The glass I had made with a glass artist that I had been, close friends with a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the work at this point in time is not strictly just ceramic.
No.
They're more mixed media constructions.
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting. What does your artwork represent?
I think that different pieces represent different things. I think some represents trauma, some represents drama, some represents lunacy.
That's what you're trying to convey, and those are the key points you're trying to get across.
Those, yeah, they seem to be sort of things that circulate the work, for me. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about other artists' work. I mean, what art do you most identify with, and what inspires you as an artist?
Classical Greek figuration, Roman figuration really is where my interests are. But then I also am very inspired by cartooning, like Robert Crumb.
Really?
Yeah.
Zap Comics meets the Parthenon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Do you have a particular single piece that is your favorite?
I wouldn't say that I do, but one piece that I think about a lot, I had an opportunity to travel to Florence and I saw Michelangelo's David in person, and that to me was really fascinating. I mean, you see it in reproductions all the time, but in person it looked like very cartoon-like in some ways to me.
Megan, what's your strongest memory of your childhood?
My grandfather had bought a large piece of property and they had turned it into a flower shop and a beauty salon and a barber shop where everyone worked. And my grandparents had lived upstairs. So it was a really fun time, and it was also a very sort of like chaotic environment. They also had purchased a small farm, and so we spent a lot of time, in the shop and at the farm. And
do you remember what your first job was?
I was working at the shop, working at the flower shop
for
my
shop.
family.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you do any work with the flowers?
No,
I asked
that was reserved for the higher ups. So.
My first job was working in a flower shop
Was
too.
it?
Yeah, my grandmother owned the biggest flower shop in Honolulu.
No way.
Yeah, so after school, sometimes my job was to string leis for them to take down to Honolulu Airport and sell to the tourists getting off the plane so that they could have a flower wreath around their neck when they got off. While we're on the subject of your memories and childhood, do you think you had what's been a seminal experience to you in your years growing up?
I was a ballet dancer, so ballet was absolutely informative. The monotony of the practice and then the connection with the audience in performance, you just completely disappear and it's all that's left is the dance itself and the electricity. That made a huge impact.
I was a ballet dancer too.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an element of choreography with all of this?
Absolutely.
I certainly do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Good to know.
Yeah.
How is your personality reflected in the works?
I'm not sure that it is. I don't have a great sense of my own personality, but in some ways, like I'm actually fairly withdrawn in my personality.
Well, the work isn't that withdrawn.
And the work is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, the work is an outlet, I think.
Yeah. I feel like to some extent you look at the work, and knowing you as I do, there's definitely your ability to inhabit a different body for a while and,
Right.
and have them perform for you in a sense.
Yeah.
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 But do you feel that's the way it is sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And different parts of myself too that don't have an outlet, or
Yeah. When do you know a work is finished?
sometimes I don't always know when a work is finished, and it'll have several lives and move from one piece to another piece. A part might move around several times until it finds its place. But I guess when the work starts to talk back, it's a good sense of, when it starts to have a life of its own.
Yeah, this is a question that comes up a lot when I talk with artists. Some people, it's all pre-planned before they go in, so it's just a matter of execution. I think your work obviously forms itself more organically, and so sometimes it's hard to know when to stop and when it needs more. And
Yeah.
obviously, they have a dialogue with you, and you understand that. But or you think you're good at that now?
Yeah. I think I've got it figured it out. I've pushed the work too far. I've overworked to death, enough that I've got an easier handle on the relationship between the work and pushing the work. So,
What do you think your favorite part of the art process is then?
working with clay, absolutely. Also, when something new happens in the work and I'm surprised, that's my favorite, I think.
If you could summarize your work in 5 words,
5 words.
what 5 words would they be?
Lunacy, levity, maybe some of the words that I've used already. Drama, or dramedy.
Doesn't have to be 5. I would add one though for you, passion.
Passion.
Yeah, I definitely feel that in your work, and I think that it's wonderful.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, thanks for having us here to look in the studio and talk with you a little bit. It's been a pleasure, and that's our talk with Megan Smythe today.